August 1870, Mayor H.C. Cross of Emporia sent to citizens of towns to the north invitations to a community feast and grand celebration. One invitation read,
Citizens of Topeka, the mayor, common council, and citizens of Emporia cordially invite you to unite with them in celebrating the completion of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad to Emporia on Wednesday, September 14th. Cars will leave the ATSF depot at Topeka 8 a.m. of that day.
The Santa Fe arrived in Emporia 6 months after the Missouri, Kansas, and Texas, the Katy, which had built into town the previous December. On September 14, 1870, the Santa Fe and the MKT brought to town for the second big bash in a year more than 1,000 guests from Topeka and Burlingame, Junction City, and Council Grove. The Emporia Brass Band made music, the mayor gave a speech, and many of the visitors toured the normal school, attended a ball in the new large business room of lawyers Ruggles and Plum, and ate dinner in the bowling hall of O.I. Case. With connections to the north and east, Emporia had become a railroad town. The effort to acquire railroads had lasted nearly 15 years. Santa Fe founder C.K. Holliday had first proposed a railroad to Emporians in 1857, but the Civil War delayed construction until the late 1860s. After the war and acquisition of Indian lands in Kansas, Congress gave millions of acres to the railroads to hasten westward migration. In addition, counties and towns in the general path of the roads provided rights of way and depot sites and issued bonds to help finance construction through their backyards. Eager for growth, new blood and new money, the 6,000 citizens of Lyon County put up $200,000 for construction of the Katy and another $200,000 for the Santa Fe. In so doing, they took a calculated risk. The railroad business was highly competitive. Each little town wanted a line, or two, or three, and each little line wanted a land grant. Railless towns like Cottonwood Falls might have to connect with the world like this. And towns with failed roads might become sidetracked and insignificant. A number of roads, such as the Johnny-come-lately Orient Railway, whose founders proposed to link Emporia to the west coast of Mexico, went bankrupt, connected nowhere to nothing, simply charged into the blue stem, and stopped. Even the successful railroads had their difficulties. In 1916, the chief engineer of the Santa Fe examined this 1873 picture and commented,
The financial extremity of the Santa Fe at this time is shown by the material used in building the track. For ties, any kind of material was used which would aid in supporting the 26-foot iron rails, which were sometimes fastened to the ties with old plates.
In spite of everything, the Katy Santa Fe succeeded, and in 1886 were joined by the Missouri Pacific, which built Lyon County's third viable line through Allen, Admire, and Bushong. By that time, the Katy had established depots in Americus, Neosho Rapids, and Hartford. The Santa Fe had depots at Reading and Plymouth on the main line, as well as Olpe on the branch from Emporia to Howard. Many of these small-town depots were marginal, and other flag stops out in the country were indicated by little more than signs along the tracks. The main centers of Emporia passenger traffic were the Katy Depot east of East Street and south of 6th Avenue, and the twice relocated Santa Fe Station, which moved to 3rd and Neosho in the 1880s. For the convenience of passengers, trains often made additional stops in the town, at Emporia Junction, where the Katy and Santa Fe tracks crossed, and for college students just north of the normal school. Emporia, with its junction and 2 depots, became an important hub in a large railroad network linking the prairie and the cities to the east with the frontier settlements in the great Southwest. The building of this network and the opening to settlement of the land grants brought Lyon County a tidal wave of Easterners on a tidal wave of propaganda.
If you would enjoy the most gorgeous natural panorama in the world, go and see the land commissioner in Emporia. He will sell you some good land in the Neosho Valley cheap. The climate and health of Kansas are unequaled. The atmosphere is dry and pure, and singularly beneficial to persons predisposed to consumption and bronchial affections. For catarrhal ailments it is a specific. Many enjoy health here who have been given up to die east. More rain falls here than in France. 1/3 of the labor required in the east in the culture of farms will ensure here double the amount of crops. Tobacco and cotton can be cultivated without danger from frost. Grapes here are in their glory.
Land sold for as little as $2 an acre.
Kansas, once called a desert, is now a garden. The Mustang is succeeded by the Norman. The buffalo has turned the prairie over to the Durham. Corn tassels wave where the Sioux danced. The wheat crop grows over the prairie dog village. The sun that crept over wigwams and cottonwood shines on orchard and meadow.
Between 1870 and 1885, the county population tripled to 21,000.
Farm laborers are in great demand. Servant girls are always sure of situations. Mechanical labor earns from $2.50 to $4 per day.
In 10 years, Emporia grew from a small prairie settlement to a thriving center of trade. According to a newspaper account of the time,
before the advent of the railroads, Lyon County was little known. Its interests were as yet undeveloped. Its light was hidden under a bushel. The value of its land was almost nothing. It was not sought as a place of residence as it is now. In fact, the bud of promise which is now fast maturing had not even begun to show any signs of vitality. Without the railroads, Emporia would have been the Niobe of Kansas.
Far from being a Niobe or stony desert, Emporia, with the aid of trains, became known as an emporium, a storehouse, a marketplace, and a regional center of learning. Passenger trains brought in legislators from Topeka, drummers from Kansas City, cattle barons from Amarillo, and students from Concordia, Dodge, Parsons, and Newton. They brought in farmers and shoppers and sightseers from Strong City and Bushong and Hartford and Olpe. They brought in more settlers, former slaves from the South, and much later, Mexican laborers to repair track, shovel clinkers, and chip ice from switch frogs. Most extraordinary, perhaps, the railroads aided the almost instantaneous transformation of the region by bringing the East west. High culture in the form of the most famous acting troupes, orators, musicians, and artists of the day reached Emporia on the train. John Philip Sousa and his band, Booker T. Washington, Jane Addams, Carl Sandburg, who came to town in a boxcar, slept under the water tower, and recited poetry for his dinner at the Hobo Jungle, Roald Amundsen and Robert E. Perry, Will Rogers, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the San Carlo Opera Company, Clyde Beatty, Henry Ward Beecher, Alvin C. York, Susan B. Anthony, William Dean Howells, and Vachel Lindsay, who earlier had dubbed Emporia the Athens of America. Politicians Ulysses S. Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, William Jennings Bryan, Teddy Roosevelt, his cousin Franklin, and Harry Truman rolled in by rail to kiss babies and make campaign promises. Some, like William Howard Taft in 1912, were met at the depot by huge crowds of Emporians. But the largest crowd gathered to greet native son William Allen White on his return in 1909 from Europe. Most of the visitors put up at local hotels, first at Will Heights Midway and later at the newly constructed Broadview. Most took their meals in the hotel dining rooms, but the more famous dined with the Whites at their first home on Cottonwood and later at Red Rock on Exchange Street. Poets, players, and presidents found Emporia, the last significant town on the Santa Fe West, a natural stop, a place to try out their acts. Singers from New York performed at the Whitley and other opera houses. St. Louis sages lectured in Albert Taylor Hall. Bands, minstrels, hypnotists, masters of the black arts, soloists, clowns, psychics, impersonators, novelists, theatrical groups, generals, winners of prizes, and kings, queens, and ambassadors drew large crowds, many by train, from city, hamlet, and farm. Thousands flocked to see Buffalo Bill and his Wild West show. Thousands attended the annual Chautauquas at Soden's Grove or went to the animal fair, Barnum and Bailey, itself ushered in on the train, lock, stock, and elephant. And as the railroads brought the world to Emporia, they also took Emporia to the world, sometimes as soldiers. Troop trains carried Emporians to the nation's training camps during the Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. As railroad passenger traffic increased, so did the opulence of the trains. By the turn of the century, the posh California Limited replaced the more primitive coaches of earlier days. This new, elegant era of long-distance travel inspired, some years later, the work of songwriter Johnny Mercer. In short, from the 1870s to the 1920s, trains delivered Emporia both body and soul. As William Allen White said,
"The Santa Fe is the best thing that ever happened to Emporia. It is one of the best things that ever happened to Kansas. It is easily one of the best things that ever happened to this land."
White uttered his praise in the 1920s when the railroads were still in their glory. But later, it was pretty much downhill with the passenger trains, a slow coast to oblivion, and their history might be summed up like this. Business boomed for about 50 years, and then gradually went to the dogs, or the horses, under the hood of the horseless car. In 1908, the Bishop Auto Company received Emporia's first wholesale shipment of autos, 3 Buicks. Soon the affordable Ford had appeared, and the concrete road, and the game was up. As automobiles grew more reliable and highways better, cars replaced passenger trains for trips of ever-increasing length. By 1920, the average trip of a passenger on the Santa Fe was 140 miles, compared to half that at the turn of the century. By 1929, the figure more than doubled again to about 290 miles per passenger trip. Streetcars and local trains, including the famous Emporia plug, disappeared or were replaced by single units as people turned to cars for the short haul. One of the casualties of high-speed long-distance travel was an Emporia institution, the Harvey House, which had served both Emporians and train passengers since 1908.
A scad of bliss has slid my way since my far-distant natal day. I've had my generous share of joy both when and since I was a boy. Right now I'm glad as glad can be. There is a Harvey meal in me.
And in 1937, at a party given by historian Orville Watson Mosier, the gastronomical wing of the Emporia station served its last oyster. Throughout the decline, the railroad companies fought back with advertising that extended from newspapers to the sides of boxcars, and with special trains, excursion trains, and luxury trains. In fact, the very time of decline, railroad passenger service through Emporia reached the zenith of luxury with the inauguration of the various Santa Fe chiefs. The El Capitan and Super Chief included the ultimate in American railroad transport. Elegant accommodations, Fred Harvey dining service, and club cars tended by the finest of barmen. But in the end, nothing could offset the losses to railless transport, and perhaps the luxury trains contributed to their own demise. In the days of cheap oil, even streamlined steamers proved too expensive, and the Santa Fe moved to diesels for their long-distance operations. In so doing, they removed one of the most romantic elements of railroad travel, the steam locomotive. As one engineer put it,
operating a steamer is an art. Operating a diesel is just another job.
Most Americans seem to agree. The extent of their attachment to steamers showed up as recently as the bicentennial year, when 1/4 of the population of Lyon County turned out to greet the American Freedom Train as it passed through Emporia on its journey eastward. Steamed past Fremont Park and out of Emporia, a few observers may even have remembered Santa Fe Locomotive 1015 in all its original glory. In spite of cutbacks and closings, more than 20 passenger trains a day still served Emporia in the late 1940s, and the Emporia Depot, rebuilt in the 1920s, still served as a center of social and economic life. It was a depot about which William Allen White once said,
"This station is the best station on the Santa Fe Railroad. It is not so elaborate as the station at Albuquerque, but as a station it is the best Santa Fe station of all."
The Santa Fe station survived. The Katy station did not. In 1952, the last Katy passenger train left Emporia, and during the 50s, the city lost the Santa Fe trains to Concordia, the Little Rangers to Winfield through Matfield Green and El Dorado, and the trains to Marion and McPherson. Then, the long-distance trains began to go. The Antelope from Kansas City to Oklahoma City in 1954, and the Chicago to Dallas Streamliners, and the original Santa Fe Chief in 1968. Only 8 trains, 4 eastbound and 4 west and southbound, remained. The last of the locals, the Grand Canyon, and the somewhat tarnished but still serviceable San Francisco Chief, Texas Chief, and the Super Chief El Capitan. On April 30th, 1971, the last Santa Fe train departed the Emporia Depot as the Santa Fe reluctantly turned its passenger operations over to the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, Amtrak, or half-track as Senator Mike Mansfield called it. Although it soon cut service to 4 trains a day, Amtrak talked for a time of more and better trains. But in 1979, Emporians learned that their 4 trains were to become 2, and even these might eventually be shifted to the more northerly Union Pacific. For many years, Emporians had resisted, sometimes out of sentiment, the loss of their passenger trains. But by the late 1970s, a new practical argument was at hand. Even as Amtrak cut service, oil became scarce and gasoline prices soared past $1 a gallon. In a few years, as the energy crisis predictably worsens and the nation shifts from oil, Emporia might yet witness the return of the Lone Star and new life for the passenger railroad.
Good morning,
Mr. Railroad Man, what time do your trains roll by? At 9:16 and 2:44 and 25 minutes to 5. It's 9:16 and 2:44 and 25 minutes to 5. Thank you, Mr. Railroad Man. I want to watch your trains roll by. Hiding by the railroad track, smoking a cheap cigar, waiting for an old freight train that carries an empty car. I pulled my hat down over my eyes, I walked across the track, I hopped aboard that old freight train, and I never did come back. It's 9:16 and 2:44 and 25 minutes to 5. Thank you, Mr. Railroad Man. I want to watch your trains roll by.